And I do not want to delay or belabor me being in front of you all. We are recording. Thank you so much for joining us. We are recording, and we will add this workshop to our PFCC Partners YouTube channel. If you have not already subscribed, please do. We also have the live transcript available, so you can hit the CC for closed caption, and it'll pop up on your screen. I see several familiar faces, but just in the event this is anyone's first time being with us, just want to share a little bit about PFCC Partners with you. So this is who we are. You see our mission, our vision, and our values, and I won't read those to you. But this is what we're all about. We want to see a health system transformed into one that works with people and through communities as partners in their well-being. We catalyze system improvements by centering the human experience of health. And we absolutely recognize the critical role that community engagement must play for every effort at delivering health equity. Excuse me. So we know that the healthcare system is big, vast, and very complex. It takes a lot of moving parts, a lot of people who are committed in healthcare. PFCC Partners believes that a system that centers the care and care processes on the person, that person has the potential to reduce the complexity and advance a culturally humble and equitable healthcare system. One of the ways that we do this is through our PFA network. We recognize that there needs to be space for patients, family caregivers, and community voices to drive the improvements in these complex systems. We know that these voices are a huge catalyst for improvement in system change. So our team has decades of passionate experience with partnering with the healthcare systems, as well as partnering with leaders and engaging with those that have lived experiences to be able to be a catalyst for change in the healthcare systems. One of the major ways we do this is through our PFA network. This is a community made up of patient advisors, by patient advisors. So it is made by patient advisors for patient advisors. So using our lived experiences to influence healthcare improvement. If you're not familiar with the PFA network, I think either Laura, who is our Director of Education, can drop that link into the chat where you can learn more about the PFA network and how you can get plugged in and join conversations. We have engagement opportunities. There are various hubs that you can join with people all over the country, being able to exchange ideas, projects that you're working on, so on and so forth, as well as skills development. We do skills exchanges where we help to continue the development of patient family advisors. As you're coming into the room, if you would, please mute yourself. That will help us to be able to focus and hear from our presenters, which I will, with no further ado, go ahead and introduce. So excited for our workshop today that is entitled Helping Employers Create Happier, More Highly Engaged Workplaces. It's presented by Darren Tully, who is the CEO and Chief Possibilities Officer of Ignite Happy, and Dakota Red, who is the Chief Nursing Officer at Hendry Regional Medical Center. Darren, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, but thank you so much. Thanks for having Dakota and myself today, and it's great to be here with everyone. I'm just going to bring up a deck here. Just give me 1 second. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right, awesome. Yeah, so it's exciting to be here, co-presenting here with Dakota, now a good friend. Here's what we're planning to do. We're both going to take a few moments to introduce ourselves a bit more and talk about how we got to this place, talk a little bit about some research that I've done and some of the healthcare trends that are out there that you might be quite familiar with. And then from there, I'll dive into the methodology and additional research as it comes down to culture transformations, just how we can help each other work differently in the workplace. And then Dakota will actually show how it can happen and how it happens at a hospital. And then we'll regroup at the end. And we'd love to really take in as many questions as we can today. If not, we'll certainly follow up with any open questions that we can get to. But please think about the questions you might have, because we want to talk through that, because sometimes that brings out some really good dynamics and details that will help everybody on the call today. So, with that, I need to just start back. Like, hey, I've been in corporate America for over 25 years. And a few years ago, I started this company called Ignite Happy. And I was at this place back in corporate America where I was doing, I thought, pretty good. I was with a Fortune 100 company. I was an executive. I had done a lot of great things, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't doing the things that really excited me or got me to be my most creative self. And what I always thought I was a good leader. I always thought I was a good person. I always thought I was bringing out the best in people. In fact, I had a purpose at that point to bring out the best in people that were around me every single day. And then I had this awakening a few years ago where I recognized I wasn't doing those things. I wasn't living out my purpose, and I was actually pushing people away. I was actually always asking the same 10% of people to do these great opportunities or projects. And you might be able to relate to that. And I wasn't really having faith that all people could do things and that everybody had potential that was just waiting to be unleashed. And I recognized I was pushing away differences. I was favoring people that were like me, and I needed to come to grips with that. And I needed to embrace my own vulnerability. And I did that within this organization. And I started to see myself change. I started to see myself actually look at who I really wanted to be as a leader. And it was really to be more aligned to be me as a human being, which, hey, I think we all have a caring heart. I mean, especially for folks in the healthcare industry. And I recognized I wasn't being my best self. I was living in this bubble. I was unaware of how I was impacting people. I was making it harder for people that maybe weren't like me. And I needed to expand myself in a different way. And I needed to break through this bubble of sameness. I needed to welcome differences in a whole different way. And when I started to do that, I started to recognize it was nothing about me, and it was about everybody around me. I needed to take a different look at life and look at the potential and the possibilities that everybody. And I came to this point where I started to believe there's a light inside everybody that was filled with love, with happiness and creativity. And I'm thinking, how do I bring that into the workplace? Because as a leader, I started my career in numbers. I was a finance person, and I always drove results, and I drove the numbers. I'm like, we got to get better results next year and the next year. And I realized that I was actually not getting the joy out of my role, out of the other people. In fact, I was making it harder for other people to succeed. I had things upside down. I was upside down because I focused on the wrong thing. I should have been focusing on the people, because that's the people I really care about, for the people that I work with every day. And when I started to change my way and actually be more genuine and authentic and show people that I cared and served each other in a way that we started to believe differently, we started to count on each other differently, we started to enjoy our day. And that's why I started this company, Ignite Happy, because I know we can ignite happy humans and organizations in a different way. And in fact, I did this in my last couple of years at this Fortune 100 company. There were 1,700 people in this organization. And I was currently, at that time, I was a chief transformation and culture officer, which is ironically focused on people in the numbers together. And what I started to notice is that when I started to engage an organization to get more involved and to ask people, like, what does joy at work look like? I started to hear people actually speak up. You know what they said? They actually said, I want to work with people I can trust and to be able to help each other thrive and succeed at the workplace. That's what they said. I'm like, oh my God, we can do this. We can actually truly spark a different path and get people involved. Out of the 1,700 people, we had over 60% of the people get involved to transform our culture. And guess what? we sparked possibilities all over the place to the point where we took our culture scores, which is a subpar third quartile in this industry rating, up to a top decile, a top 10% within 12 months, because we cared about each other in a different way. We started to believe in each other. All layers, all levels, all senior folks believed that there was untapped potential in each other. And then our actions followed, and additional results ensued where we were recognized as the #1 leader in financial wellness in the industry. And then we actually were able to double our net promoter scores, where people were actually looking to buy more from us and stay with us longer. So our business was being retained. And then I know for a lot of leaders, we still have to get some results. We actually more than doubled our profit numbers, which was unbelievable because we actually changed the order. We actually moved back and started to focus on our people. And I started to believe at that point, we got to change the way we work in all industries. And that's why I started this business. And I wrote a book, and then I started to partner with Dakota. And Dakota, I'm going to hand it over to you to give us a little bit more context.
All right, thanks, Darren. So my name is Dakota Red. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer at Hendry Regional Medical Center. We're a critical access hospital in Clewiston, Florida. Critical access hospital means we're licensed for 25 beds. We have a 24/7 emergency department. We do have a surgery suite and outpatient surgery and inpatient surgery. And as I said, 25 licensed inpatient beds. My journey with Darren has kind of taken a similar path as his. Professionally, I was asked to take over the Chief Nursing Officer position here at the hospital in 2021, March of 2021 to be exact. I knew the hospital. It was my 5th year here at the hospital. I had a little 13-month break where I went up north and took care of a family member of mine. I came back to the hospital. When I came back to the hospital, the pandemic had done a lot of damage, not only to the hospital, but to the staff. And there was a lot of burnout, a lot of incivility. There was a lack of trust throughout the environment. And so my hope was to try to reconnect people to purpose and try to establish at some level trust, because there was literally no trust from the C-suite on down. And so back in July of 2021, I couldn't pick a better time, because in August, the Delta variant hit our hospital, and we've seen some of the worst of COVID that we've ever experienced, and certainly the worst healthcare emergency healthcare situation that we've had at this hospital ever. We had 7 ventilator patients in our emergency department. We do not have an ICU. We did turn our ED into an ICU, but 7 ventilator patients. We were on diversion multiple times for several weeks during that period of time. And so that was in August, and in July I said, well, we're going to go through a journey here. And what I hope is that I can create a level of happiness and enthusiasm around happiness. And I used Shawn Achor's book, The Happiness Advantage. We went through the 7 principles over 7 months. And I will tell you, it takes a lot of courage to go down this path, because people don't like to be told that they need to change. And certainly if they're not ready to change, and certainly if they're being challenged by the extraordinary events that were going on at the time. So that was my journey. I got a lot of eye rolling. I told Darren, and I'm a storyteller, so I apologize to all of you in advance, but I tell stories. My first class with the nursing leadership, and I took the nursing leadership because obviously I had oversight of the nursing leaders. So I was able to convince them that this was a journey worth taking, and that if some good came out of it, that maybe the rest of the hospital would want to partner in that journey with us. But that first class, I had 7 leaders in the class. One actively rolled their eyes as I went through the first few slides of the slide deck. One slept off and on. 2 of them talked during the first 15 minutes of the presentation. And so that's kind of how the start began. So it really takes a lot of courage to understand if you're looking at changing a culture. And at that point, it was just, I just wanted to change the culture. I just wanted to create some happiness. We were experiencing things in our workforce that, much like all of you probably experienced at that time, we had our turnover rate at one point during 2021 hit 50%. We had horrible vacancies in our emergency department. I think at one point I had one night nurse that had worked here for more than a few years. And so we relied on travelers. We were challenged with our quality metrics, and again, as I said, we were trying to get through one of the worst healthcare emergencies this hospital ever faced. So that's kind of how our journey started. It was after we went through the 7 principles and we started to gain some ground with what our responsibility is in creating some kind of joy for ourselves. And it was in the manifestation of that change that people started to take notice that things were becoming a bit different. This is actually a picture out of my office, and that helping people thrive, creating joy at work. This was kind of an organic process that we created here. With the end result was, if we could create a little more joy for each other and our staff members and the other departments, that the end results would take care of themselves. And that's kind of what our mission was here. And again, as I said, it's very challenging. At some point in time, that culture change became a paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift was, we not just targeted the culture and stayed, because typically it's, we focus on the patients and the culture as it relates to the patients. And really the paradigm shift for us is we focused on the staff. It was clearly, that was where the greatest need was. And I felt very strongly that that's where our advantage would be. If we could create some joy within the staff, the end results would take care of themselves.
Thanks, Dakota. So I'll jump back in and just give a little bit more context, background on research that I hope you all find interesting and hopefully useful as you make your case for what is possible at your organization. And I love what Dakota just said about how it's organic. And there's not just a perfect one size fits all, and it takes some effort and commitment, yet it's organic, right? So you got to, I guess I would just suggest it, depends on where you want to focus and what you want to get done, yet it's possible. That's what I want to share with you. And what's core about this chart for you to understand is that no matter where you're from, if it's healthcare or financial services like where I'm from, it's customers and financials. That's what most leaders focus on. It's the bottom line, and are we mitigating risk, and are we viable for next year, and are we able to improve our results next year? And it goes on and on. It's just like joy in ourselves. It's not always the outcome or to continue to grow or to get to that next position. That's not where joy really comes from. It's about how we work with patients and how we work with each other. So if you actually look at the order here, the flow actually starts with our people. It flows with, from the culture, within the culture where it's safe to work together and to come up with unique ideas and to be part of something bigger. That's where the focus is. And Dakota, I appreciate what you just said, right? You said you shifted your focus from the patients to the patient caregivers, energizing folks to make it happen at the front line, in the ED, wherever people were. People needed to be engaged and not wait for other folks to come in with the solutions or the answers. And it started to help people thrive. And when people feel they belong or they matter, they feel valued, they feel seen. I mean, we all like to be seen. We all like to be told, hey, great job. And if we're doing something together with a greater purpose, I promise you people are going to grow in amazing ways, and you're going to get the results. You're going to get better results than you ever imagined. And it's just making sure that we actually flip the order. We're not losing sight that we need to get outcomes. We need, great patient safety. It's just the order of what you do it by. Because what I believe is that what's good for people is good for business. And here's some additional research that, hey, when we actually focus on the employee experience, maybe it's making it fun, maybe it's giving autonomy and teaching people how to grow and have mastery, whatever that might be for you, it's proven that companies and organizations have higher profit margins by 4 times. And think about if you have a nurse or somebody taking care of you, maybe you're out to a restaurant. Do you want someone that's unhappy treating you? Because certainly happier people are more productive. They're more creative. They're more inclusive. They're more willing to actually go above and beyond during the day. And people that are more creative, guess what? It creates more revenue. It creates more opportunities, more discovery. Maybe solving problems when we're in a pandemic, or solving problems when there is crisis in the markets, which we know is just around the next corner. Something else will happen, and we just need to be prepared for it, and knowing that we can handle it. And then involving our people, involving each other as part of our decisions. When we do that, as you can see, the results are well above average. People feel included. And when people are included, they're going to follow through on the solution. They're going to execute it. They're going to go through brick walls for each other. And this is what creates really unique and special teams, because if you look at the comparison between a couple teams, a lot of people will say, hey, we want to bring the full self of people to work and to enjoy the work they do. And quite honestly, not everybody wants to bring their 100% of their full self. And some people even joked with me to say, hey, you don't want my full self. And I appreciate that. Bring what you want. Yeah, I don't want to create hurdles for you based on maybe some of the things that we put in the way in the workplace. But we want to have people understand that it's about the team. And it's not about focusing on the results. Because I think when you start a role or a job, you're all in. And then when you don't get recognized, or when you're not getting selected to be part of a project or to contribute to a culture change, you start to get deflated. You feel like you don't want to participate. You're just going to kind of be quiet. I think even today's society, people are kind of hiding. People are avoiding conversations. They're trying to not be seen. They don't want to be caught in trouble, or if there's a change, or if there's ever layoffs. I don't want to be in the middle of all that stuff. And we start to self-rationalize that I'm not part of the problem. We need to jump in and own the problem. We need to solve things together, not blame each other. It's not about us versus them. This is about we. And this is really about getting something for the greater good. And it's about stepping in for the team, because a lot of the organizations I work with, when I first go in, people aren't acting like a team. They're like, oh, I got to get my results done. I got to get my tasks done. I got to do that before I go home. Where no, we have to make sure the most important things are getting done, and making sure we know what our roles are. Because when we start to do that, we start to step in differently. We believe and trust in each other in a whole different way. We start to tap into the potential. We start to find capacity. A lot of people say, oh, I'm too busy. But when we're doing things together that we like, we find capacity. We not only learn, we actually unlearn some of the things we taught ourselves to grow with a mindset that's possible. We start to have joy, and we can actually talk about love in the workplace, because we start to care with each other in a whole different way, especially in healthcare. I mean, it actually shows up as we're taking care of patients, right? There's a care and love that's very unique. And this is what's going on at Hendry. And I'm excited to hear the details, Dakota. So I'm going to pass this back to you so you can show us what you all did and how organic this came together.
Absolutely. So I know in healthcare, unfortunately, it's all about the numbers at the end of the day. And so I'm going to share some numbers with you. But I also want to echo what Darren's just said. We've seen amazing changes in the people. And that's, for us, is probably the most important thing. When I went in and talked to the CEO originally in 2021, I said, I want to take my nursing leadership through this journey. Reluctantly, he said, okay, I'll support it. I said, well, it has to be supported from you all the way down. And so I encourage you who are out there that it has to be a top, bottom, inside out journey. Otherwise, it's going to fail at some level. And one of the things that I was very worried about, because there's a lot of talk about cultural changes as being soft and really not being able, what value do they bring? And I hopefully after I share some numbers with you, you're going to see the value that they bring. But getting people to get involved is critically important. And so the first test for us was going to be our HSOP survey. We had not been surveyed in 2 years. That's the HRQ version of the survey, patient safety. And in 2021, the average response rate was 47%. I knew we had engagement. I knew we made some inroads into engagement, but I had no idea that we'd engage at 85%, which was, twice the national average of the prior year. Our clinics had 100% engagement. Of that engagement, of the 10 metrics that were measured during the HSOP survey for us, in the benchmark area, we had 6 of the 10 that were above benchmark. 4 of those were statistically significantly above. The 4 that were either at or below benchmark, there was 1 that was only statistically below benchmark. So a huge turnaround to benchmark. And the one that was statistically below benchmark, which was staffing and work pace, we knew obviously we had a problem. We had 50% turnover in 2021. We had to rebuild an ED staff. The work pace, we underwent a horrible surge in COVID in 2021, the third quarter of 2021. So we knew that was going to be out there. To my surprise, when we looked at those same 10 metrics compared to the prior survey, the one metric that was well below benchmark was staffing and pace. It actually had improved statistically over the 2020 survey. And 2020, we had not been hit by COVID yet. So we made a huge turnaround, even with staffing and work pace in the middle of all that we were going through. We had our net promoter score improved by 26 points. So that was the original test for me. And I felt like it validated that the work that we had done to improve, to focus on our staff had paid dividends. And I can tell you our quality numbers, even as of the first quarter of this year, continue to be positive trending. Our ADRs, we improved 50%. We had a 70% improvement in critical documentation, nursing documentation, a 15% reduction in falls. And we continued to push the environment to grow. I told Darren a story about the ED. We have a 10-bed ED. We had hit a all-time high in visits. We had 79 visits in one day. And instead of the staff decrying that they didn't have enough help, they actually celebrated. They clapped, they applauded each other for being able to care for 79 patients. So we've done some really very, very strong things. And again, our goal was always to focus on creating joy for our staff. We had 2 book clubs, and that's where I got involved with Darren. The first book, as I told you, was The Happiness Advantage. Well, at some point, I was looking for that next step to keep the conversation going. And our CEO, David Thoreau, came to my office and he said, "Hey, I think I got a book that you'll like." And he plopped Darren's book down on my desk. And I didn't make it through the first couple pages that I realized this was the next step for us in our journey. So the first step was foundational. This was going to be transformational for us. And so I asked him, where can I get more of these books? Went through the book, read it, got towards the end of the book and seen a challenge by the author saying, "Hey, if you're going through something like this, email me. Here's my email. I'd love to hear about what you're doing." And so one Friday night, it was raining here. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening. I emailed him. I said, "Listen, we've been the poster children for the S&M crowd. There's, routine incivility here at the hospital. We've been struggling to try to not only bring a new culture, but to do a paradigm shift as far as what we're focused on." And he responded. And that's kind of how we conjoined forces here. And so and still doing very, very well. I just started a 9-week course on the Happiness Advantage and Thrive. Thrive, you'll hear a little more about here in a minute, here at the hospital, which is a very important acronym for us. And that class was full with a waiting list. And so we're very excited. So this is, again, as I'd mentioned to you, this has been very organic for the hospital. I will also share with you, we set no expectations that people have to do this. We want them to come to this naturally. And so part of the organic process was really trying to define what it was we were doing. You had to have some established format. And in one of the nursing leadership meetings, we talked about, the importance of the word thrive for healthcare. Patients thrive, patients fail to thrive, and what that meant for what we were doing in changing our culture. And slowly we developed this acronym, and it just made more and more sense the more we used it. So the T is trust. Obviously, you have to establish trust if you're going to take a journey like this. Honest and open, authentic communication is critical for establishing trust. We had to have respect for each other as we went down this journey. Inclusion meant including more people into the conversation. This was very difficult, especially in the C-suite, because literally some of those conversations are somewhat exclusive. And so getting them to understand that we had to be inclusive if we wanted to be innovative. And that was an important piece of the puzzle. Being vulnerable, and not the type of vulnerability that we got around the table and we all hugged and cried. And although we did share some of that, but the type of vulnerability where you could trust each other, that if you tried something new and it didn't work, they weren't going to throw you under the bus. They were going to say, hey, it was a great try. Maybe we could help you tweak it or whatever we can do. So that's the kind of vulnerability that was being established. And then obviously we're in healthcare, so there had to be some expectations so that we could be accountable for each other. And really that's where it took off. That's where it took off for us.
Dakota, do you want to talk about the
Yep.
slide a little bit
Yep.
more, or do you want to go back to the book?
Well, actually, much of what I said is included in this slide. This is all from the staff, and these are the two books that we used. But the word cloud was developed from statements from the staff that suggesting why they love being here. And again, we went through one of the most difficult times that a healthcare organization could face. We did it undermanned, and we defied what most people would have thought would have happened to us by coming out the other side actually looking better. And this is kind of the descriptor from our staff and why it is so important to be part of the HRMC family here. So again, the two books that we used in our book clubs to help further along the process of our culture change here at the hospital. The first one was Foundational, The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. If you want to see a great TED Talk, he has a 13-minute TED Talk out there on the Happiness Advantage and how it can improve your work environment. Then transformational for us was Live Your Possible, and that's Darren's book, which is now a bestseller. We're very proud of being part of that journey with him. So that book has helped us to create the stir, keep the stir going that was created through the Happiness Advantage. So I told you we didn't back down from from any challenges that we had to face during this time. You would think that maybe that you would have backed away from some of the initiatives, but we actually accelerated our initiatives. We developed a falls work group, which helped a great deal in reducing falls. We created a no fall zone. We had lots of mock drills and continue to have lots of mock drills, both fall drills, code blues, and those of you that have ever tried to encourage your team to do mock drills in the middle of craziness, you understand how hard that is. But we pushed forward knowing that there was great advantage to this. I do daily surveillance rounding. We operationalized our simulation lab, Code Blue work group, our Good Catch program, and this is something worth talking about. So a couple years ago, we started a Good Catch program, and obviously good catches are those events that never make it to the patient that are caught by staff and brought forward to improve process. So if you look at the left of this slide, that was the beginning of our Good Catch program in May of 2021. And the picture to your right is actually the Good Catch board now. And we added actually 4 more good catches to that this morning as we celebrated 4 more good catches. And so this is, this has improved safety and quality at the hospital enormously. And we celebrate the good catches. So every one of those pictures represents a staff member, and every department is represented in those good catches, from the physicians, the registration clerks, nursing, HIM. So we've been very, very excited at the progress of our Good Catch program and what that's meant for our organization and our staff celebrating us. They're given a plaque by the CEO, a gift card. And today they just added, we obviously have a fish theme. Anybody that looks up Clewiston knows that we're on the southwest coast of Lake Okeechobee. So what's big down here is big mouth bass. So fishing is a very strong theme in this area. So this morning, the patient safety officer, along with the plaque and the gift certificate, gave a jar full of candy fishes to go with the theme. So a lot of creative ideas to engage the staff in safety and quality. So one of the things that we've learned very well here at this hospital is how to celebrate. It's unfortunate, but I think in healthcare, we've lost the ability to celebrate what we do well. We focus so hard on what our opportunities are, but we've learned to celebrate, and these are several of those celebrations that we've done over the last year, and we will continue them because the staff really do enjoy the celebrations.
Dakota, is there, do you want to talk about the QR code? I thought that was pretty creative by your by the team.
So again, this is how inclusion leads to innovation. When we were rolling out the patient safety survey and trying to encourage people to take the survey, the patient safety officer at the time, Jamie Long, had suggested doing these QR codes, these edible QR codes on top of cupcakes, and thought it was a marvelous idea. Had to find a bakery that could do it. Was able to find a relatively local bakery to do it. And so that's the kind of innovation you get when you include others to the ideas.
Dakota, I know one of the themes that came out. I'll talk through just a bit to kind of reinforce some things where you talk about helping people thrive, creating joy at work, which was a tagline that came out of Thrive, and all the word clouds, listening to people's energy and voices, and the commitment really took hold. And the thing is that, just to reinforce that, Hendry really made that courageous step to say we need to become more of a team. We need to be people first. We need to think about joy, and it's a real thing. It's not just one of those things that's fleeting and goes away. when we think about happiness, because we know there's better productivity in it, and that's proven out based on your creativity and, and the involvement of the teams. And people are actually feeling like they can step in. It's safer. You know, people feel like there's real empathy. People are meeting each other where each other are when, you know, if they're in the ED or they're coming in and they're getting that cupcake with the QR code, whatever that is. You guys are all out there, all levels. Mr. Williams, the CEO, yourself, all folks in the organization are stepping in, and people want to stay there. And we know there's the nursing shortages of vacancies. We need to retain and keep the people here and believe in people in a different way. And that's what you're doing there. You're sharing that genuine interest in care, and you're trusting each other, which is really garnering more energy. This is all proven research that people are more energetic, they're more engaged, and people want to do more, right? The positive reinforcements, you're starting to create that positive environment, and it creates new habits. We unlearn some of our old habits, and we start to believe in each other in a different way. And one of the most critical things I want to harp on is you got to walk the talk, and it takes time. It takes repetition. It's not like you just come in tomorrow and it's going to be done. This is something that has to be done every day. And it's a part of who you are. It's a part of who we are as human beings, about how we really care authentically for each other. And as leaders, when we walk the talk, it's powerful. And I know there's probably some stories, Dakota. I think I've heard you on one of the slides before, you talked about thank you notes. And I think there was even some, I think Mr. Williams even opened up some meetings differently, allowing folks to say what they're thankful for. And some people were actually thankful for actually getting excited to come into work every day. Like, things were changing. So before we go to the Q&A, Dakota, I'd love to know a bit more on one of your comments earlier. You talked about people are changing. Can you give us what that looks like, or what you mean by that?
So at first it was very difficult to actually identify specific change. It was nuanced. It was, less incivility. People started to talk to each other more. There was starting to establish some trust. As that grew, then you could see more dramatic changes, and that was at all levels in every department. One of the conversations I had with Mr. Williams, and this is the level of vulnerability I have to share with you that's necessary. When I was reading Live Your Possible in chapter 5, Darren talks about a toxic work environment that he was involved in. And as I read that, I went, wow, that's us. Probably not as bad as us. And so when I shared it with Mr. Williams and I read it to him, and he sat there pensively for a minute. This is our CEO of this hospital, and very accomplished, I might add. He sat there quietly, pensively for a minute, and then he turned to me and he said, I have to tell you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I let this happen. And I was kind of gobstopped. I would, quiet a minute, but I told him it doesn't have to stay like this. And that's why we're doing this. That's why we're committing to do this. From nursing leadership, my ED director and perioperative director, who's the same person, we wear many hats in the hospital. She was the first one to be on board with it. And when she tasked her staff she bought them all a version of the book, The Happiness Advantage. She lost 2 of them almost immediately. One of them said, I'm not interested in all this happiness. This is not what I signed on to. So it was very difficult at first. And so getting people to trust that this was a good journey to take. Fast forward to today, Thrive is commonly talked about at every meeting. As Darren shared with you yesterday at our department heads meeting, the last thing we did was went around the table and said what we were grateful for. The whole environment, how we talk to each other, the degree of respect, the acceptance of failability. One of the things that you have to be very cautious of is that wanting to be perfect. No one's perfect. This wasn't a perfect journey. As I said, it was very organic. What we set our sights on was just being better today than we were yesterday. And that seemed to work. It resonated with all of our staff, every department's included. And so that's kind of how the changes occurred. And like I said, I started these classes and we have a waiting list for, there's not one nurse in the class right now. They're all other departments that signed up first, that wanted to be a part of this. So great deal of inclusion, very excited about what it's done. I've done this for 40 years. The last 10 years of my career, I can tell you, I kind of been targeted as the guy goes in, helps cultures change, but never anything like this and never anything at this level. And as I've gone through this journey myself, I have to tell you that healthcare needs this. When you look at burnout, I told Darren, one of the things that I've always noticed at being in the C-suite, I've been in the C-suite 11 years out of my career, it was an ultimate goal of mine. I used to interview all the nurses, and the one question I would ask them in orientation is, why did you want to be a nurse? And there was such a personal connection to wanting to be a nurse. It was, oh, my aunt was a nurse, or, nurses took care of my sick child. There was such a personal connection. And to lose nurses the way we were losing nurses, and for the reasons we were losing them, there had to be something better out there. And I want to share with you, I think this is a better version of what we can do to help save nurses and recruit nurses. This has just been a wonderful, wonderful journey for us here at the hospital.
Good. It's amazing and beautiful. And all the vulnerability and excitement there. And I think we all know things start with each of us individually, and, being able to let our guards down a little bit, helping to focus on other people. Because I know when we do that, we do feel good. I mean, you all know this, being in the healthcare industry and organizations and hospitals, and, partnering with PFCC partners and across the different communities to find solutions. We feel good. It's a two-way street. And I think how we treat each other in different organizations so critical, because it leads to just transformational thinking and results and discoveries. And, Hendry, I commend you, Dakota, and Mr. Williams, and the whole team for partnering and working together, because you guys are beaming and it's beautiful. And that's why we're here today, right? To show people what is possible. And this is our information. Like Dakota and I want to help. On the bottom, you'll see our websites, our emails in particular is important. So if you have questions or want to reach out to us directly, Dakota and I are available. We want to help you. So just, we're sincere about it. We're genuine about it, because we believe this is possible for any organization that commits to it, walks the talk, and actually starts to share the joy and get people involved in a different way, just like Dakota and the Hendry team did. So I'll pause here. Naomi, do you want to run through any Q&A that might be in the chat, or what you might have gotten from people when they registered?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. First, let me say thank you so much to both of you for this rich information that you shared, and love the culture shift and change that was experienced at Hendry. So one that I didn't hear an answer to, the question is, are there guidelines or criteria for great catch?
So yes, there are guidelines. Generally speaking, it's an event that our process breakdown in which could have either made it to the patient or caused an unfortunate event for the patient. And so that's kind of what we look at, but it could be inappropriate registration, dual registration, medication, potential medication errors, equipment failures, the whole all along the clinical situ. We've had physicians identify allergies. So everything pretty much is represented on the board. I can tell you that happens in healthcare.
Thank you. The name of the book is here, Live Your Possible. How did you bring the patient voice into your project improvement? Well,
so you might have noticed that I didn't mentioned patient a great deal. We already knew what the patients thought of the hospital. They had a bit of a struggling reputation in the community, kind of a bandage center reputation. And so our goal really was to focus on the staff, and that's really where the paradigm shift was. I mean, this may be heretical to some of you out there, because I know that everybody is so focused on the patient experience. But my goal really was to impact the people that impacted the patient experience. And as a healthcare leader, I thought that was my responsibility. Helping people thrive, creating joy at work. That's my office wall that they're standing in front of in that slide. That's the last thing I look at when I leave for the day. It's the first thing I see when I open my office door. And what I can share with you is what the hospital board said to us. We have a community-based board. So all of our board members are leaders in the community. And they said they had never been approached by so many positive comments about the changes at the hospital. Out on the street, people walking up to them and saying, I know you're a board member at the hospital. I just want to tell you how wonderful things are going at the hospital. The last thing I'll say, I keep an open door policy. So my door's open most of the time. I've had to lock it now so people don't walk in because they're so used to walking into my office. I had a gentleman who was here visiting a family member here. And he noticed that I have several chairs in my office. So he walked in my office and sat down. He said, "You don't mind if I sit here for a minute, do you?" They're cleaning the room. And I said, "No, I don't mind at all. Go ahead." And so we started up a conversation. He said, "I have to tell you," he said, "my wife's been a nurse. She's retired now. I have 3 children, but we never thought much of this hospital until recently." He said, 6 months ago, I had to bring my wife into this hospital, and I couldn't believe how wonderful her care was. That was just today, literally an hour ago, 2 hours ago now.
Oh, wow. One of the questions that was asked, and then I'll come to the one that was just put in. But how does this work with new hires? When you bring new hires on, do they adjust to this culture easily?
So that's a great question. We've tried to very purposefully avoid making this a program. We want people to embrace it naturally. So obviously when we're doing the interview, we ask questions that really kind of direct us to whether or not they're good candidates for what we're trying to create here with the culture. And we do let them know if we do extend an offer about the changes that are occurring. I tell them what I tell everybody, that I have 2 golden rules related to the change. And that first rule is that this is a change by choice, just like life is. Everything that we do in life comes by choice. And the second rule is not to forget rule number 1. And so that's kind of how we go about it. No program. Eventually, as they're ready to sign up for a class or ask more, I do some night shifts. I do a quarterly meeting with the night shift, in which I've introduced Thrive with them, and many of the examples and including the innovations that we've had come from the staff during our cookies and coffee with the CNO on nights. So it's kind of how it's addressed. And I can tell you, and let me share with all your listeners, one of the most difficult things is to avoid making this a program because everybody wants to structure it. Everybody wants to have timelines. Everybody wants to hit targets. And we avoided that at all costs.
So it was an opt-in, not an opt-out type
Absolutely.
situation. It was not forced.
Absolutely.
So this kind of goes into I think you answered it. And Dion, if not, please let me know. But part of the question that is asked is, how do you address burnout when nurses and or other caregivers, they don't want to take these classes? They would much prefer to have a day off, a mental health day after having worked 60 hours that week.
So, well, we worked very hard to make sure that both the staffing and pace are doable. But you'll be very, very surprised when you start focusing on them and you develop trust with the bedside staff, and they understand that you're really working on their best behalf. How it even reverses the effects of burnout. I mean, this is the whole reason that I thought it was so necessary to go down this journey, was I was seeing burnout at horrible rates, and the ideas that were out there that were suggested to help respond to burnout were all on the after they burned out. What I wanted to create was an environment where they didn't burn out. If you have team members that support you through processes, and you understand that we all have bad days, but from the top down, inside out, we're all here to support you through this path. I think we're going to see a great deal less burnout. Our numbers are already starting to show that. And I don't want to just focus on the numbers, but our recruitment retention's been really very, very strong in a market that's been very weak. And we're a critical access hospital. We don't have very deep pockets. So from a competitive standpoint, we have the East and West Coast of Florida and several very large health systems that have very deep pockets that we don't have. And so I think that many of the staff members were searching for something like this. And again, we're giving them the tools through the education that we're providing to help them to avoid getting to the point of burnout. And I think the supportive environment and the focus on joy really has helped.
And Dakota, it seems like you kind of switched this or shifted this to be preventive care on each other. And that's what's amazing. So instead of triaging it after the fact, or might be too late, you're truly putting that methodology to work with your people, which is super fun. I'm just curious too about the capacity. Do you feel people do they find the time to participate in this work differently?
Well, again, because we want it to be their choice. We're not pushing anybody towards it. And I have to tell you, I think that as people see other staff members go through, the journey of the book and the Happiness Advantage, and then we segue into Thrive and the culture changes, they want to be part of that. When I took this over, there was horrible burnout here. It was really very bad. I have a thank you note from a nurse that finally had to quit nursing. She was one of our ED nurses that we lost very early in the pandemic. And she wrote me a note saying how much she appreciated me taking the time to speak with her and share with her what we were trying to accomplish there. And even though she wasn't going to be able to stay in nursing any longer, she appreciated the direction we were going in, and she thought it would be helpful. And she thanked me and told me to take care of myself, because she thought the mission that we were on was going to be one that would help nurses in the future.
Thank you for that. I saw Dion's hand, so I'm going to bring you in. And I see we're at 3:59. So if by chance we go past 4, if you have to hop off, we understand. I am going to go ahead and share my screen as well. Dion?
Yeah, what I was going to say was, you said what I meant correctly. But what my concern is, because I'm dealing with this with some partners, some community partners, which is a huge mega hospital here in St. Louis. And we discussed burnout. We've discussed ways that we can help them with like breath work classes, soft skills and things like that. But the problem is that the administration of the hospital, like someone said, from the top down, the culture there is, we want you all to work, do your job, and go home. And we're not going to do anything basically, because every department is burnt out, from genetics to emergency room medicine to gastro to oncology. Every department that I've talked, because I talk and I do work with every department. Everyone, including researchers, are burned out. And what I'm concerned is trying to do something like this. Because I'm assuming that your hospital is smaller, do you find, or would you suggest anything different when you're dealing with one of the largest hospital systems in one state?
So you're from St. Louis,
I am.
as I am.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with the hospital systems up there. Worked for a couple of the big ones. I will tell you, the approach is the same. I knew when I started this journey with this team here that it was an uphill climb. The C-suite, when I talk about incivility being common at the department level, it was common in the C-suite. When I challenged them to look at things differently and understand the importance of where we were at, with the pandemic, with burnout, with turnover, with recruitment, they went the old pattern. We just continue to pursue the journey that they had been on. And so that's why I took the small group of leadership that I did. And the value of that was I could, in a very small microcosm of the hospital, say, look how it worked. And as other people seen it working, then they said, hey, that's something we want to be part of, which kind of helped having that conversation in the C-suite. But it takes great courage. I certainly encourage you to continue it. Look at opportunities. I know that many C-suite people think that this is soft. It's not. It will lead to positive outcomes. Our surgical volume, outpatient surgical volume, has grown by 40%. Our ED volume has grown by 20%. Throw some of those metrics at them. And we're celebrating those increases.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have never happened before. So I encourage you, anything I can do to help, I would be glad to help. It is absolutely worth the fight. Absolutely worth the fight.
Okay, thank you. So start at the C-suite and work my way down,
It
or
has to
just
be the
take a
top down, and you have to help them understand it has to be the top down. It has to be a commitment, and it's not a finite commitment. It's not a quarterly commitment. It is really as you would say when you're trying to get someone to change their dietary habits, it's a lifestyle commitment. You spend most of your time at work. It's a lifestyle commitment.
Okay,
and one of the great things, Dion, you have a resource because Dakota added his email address, so you can reach out and work to connect him with your C-suite folks.
Absolutely.
So you're not doing it on your own. So that's the great part of
I'll go
partnership.
one better than that. I can guarantee you the CEO of this hospital, Mr. R.D. Williams, will be happy to talk to your CEO and let him know what the advantage has been for this organization, what it's meant for this organization. He's that committed. He is maybe not as passionate as I am. He shares his passion quite differently, but he'll share with the CEO what it's meant for our organization, what it's meant for the community at large, our reputation, the workforce here at the hospital, our daily existence. He'll be happy to share that with the CEO. So if you you want to reach out to me, I will put you in contact with Mr. Williams, and I'm sure he'll be glad to share that with you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Well, Darren and Dakota, thank you both so much. Everyone who has joined us, thank you for being here. We look forward to having a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we look forward to you all joining us again the end of May. Thank you.
Thank you.